Hello, Bryan Colter here, Evolutionary Astrologer, for your horoscope report for the upcoming solar eclipse that happens on June 10th in the sign of Gemini. Super Geminian pulse here because we have the planet that rules Gemini, Mercury, in its own sign right next to the eclipse. Super rare for that to happen, so we're going to have to understand this energy, which happens to be very mercurial. And eclipse seasons in general tend to bring about very disruptive energy, also very exciting energy, bringing about great change. And we'll see this on the world stage, of course, but also in our own personal lives, especially if these eclipses are happening in very sensitive places in your birth chart. So if you don't know where it is, I recommend you look to where 19 degrees of Gemini is in your chart, and then you can see what house the eclipse is happening in, which is an area of your life, let's say, and also what planet it's next to in your chart, if any. And if it's sitting on some planets in your chart, it's going to be more dramatic for you than the average bear. And if you don't know what the heck I'm even talking about, I do recommend a 40-minute instructional video that I have on my website for sale, and it's on sale, actually. And I'll put a link above and below so you can check it out. And I also have my other 2 classes on sale as well. Now, to understand the big picture meaning of this eclipse, we must also understand the other big events that are coinciding with it. And the big one this month is the Saturn-Uranus square, which is the event of the year, really, is hitting its second exact square, which means it's exactly 90 degrees apart from each other, in a little bit of a face-off, if you will. And square is a hard angle. It implies friction between these 2 archetypal fields, which is strong over the whole year, but it's at its maximum peak, maximum spike now, because this exact square is happening within a few days of the eclipse itself. And I've talked a lot about this square already, but just a quick recap. You have Uranus, which basically represents personal freedom. And then we have Saturn, which represents social limitation and control. And here they are at cross purposes with each other. And Uranus has this freedom-seeking impulse, and it's feeling very claustrophobic this year as Saturn is at cross purposes with it, and it feels really hemmed in. And Uranus hates to feel claustrophobic, so it's starting to throw those elbows pretty wildly. And meanwhile, in response to that, Saturn has a fear of a loss of control, okay? So it's tightening its grip. This reminds me of Star Wars, actually, the original Star Wars, where the freedom fighters, which is kind of an Aquarian symbol, are stuck in the trash compactor of the evil empire. And there's this sense of urgency in this moment as they're trying to reclaim their freedom. And Uranus always brings about that sense of urgency. The time is now. It's almost too late. We feel the walls closing in. We must take action. We must move forward. And Saturn, the Saturnian impulse of control, fears one thing, basically, a loss of that control. Another thing Saturn, archetypal field, fears is disorder, because it is the planet of order. So it fears disorder and chaos, which is definitely within the wheelhouse of potentials within the Uranian archetypal field. So they're both in this face-off. So it's a friction-based sign, or a set of symbols here, okay? So ideally, we try to integrate the square, which is easier said than done, and find a happy medium between these 2 very different energies. Now, we complicate this further by putting this peak Saturn-Uranus square, the second exactitude of the year, right next to the solar eclipse in the heat of the eclipse season, really putting into the spotlight the south node and the north node of the moon in Sagittarius and Gemini, because the eclipses will always follow the nodes of the moon. And I've talked about this a lot, and in fact, this material is very similar to the last video I did. The energy hasn't changed much in the last 2 weeks. There are distinctions, but since the Gemini is even stronger now, it's like this energy has become even more dramatic. It's been building. So the karmic wave is breaking in our lives collectively. And maybe even individually if you have these transiting nodes are hitting your chart in a very specific way. So the collective is trying to grow beyond the South Node, dark side Sagittarius, which, among other things, is dogma, is fixed set of belief systems, okay, versus Gemini, which is truth, which is perceiving reality more clearly. So we're all trying to perceive reality with more clarity, but it's so challenging because the South Node always has more weight to it, more gravity to it. So we're trying to balance out that teeter-totter between the opposite signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. Eclipse is happening on the North Node in Gemini, saying it's time to really, really focus on this above all else. And as I've said, and as I've heard my teachers say, the world is drunk on dark side Sagittarius. We're drunk on religion, and that's not necessarily about the belief in God. We all have some belief system that we're dogmatic about, fanatical about. Some illustrate this more than others, of course, okay? Always generalizing with these readings here, with these horoscopes, as we're trying to just feel into the energy. But dogma is at a fever pitch now, okay? And groups of people who have belief systems, of course, they're fed these belief systems. They stay in these echo chambers, especially online and stuff, so their belief system grows, it grows stronger. And we just have team play. It's a war of ideology. It's a war of ideas. Now, broadly speaking, we have the Uranian group of dogmas over here versus facing off against the more Saturnian dogmas over here within this war of ideologies. And as these groups of people come together, faster than ever, thanks to the internet, we're coming together. And people who have certain beliefs, they're operating at a certain frequency because there's certain emotions that are attached to those beliefs too. And then they have other people that are thinking the same thing. They come together, the energy grows, the energy grows, the energy grows. Okay? And they're all standing for something. And the people from the Uranian dogmas can only see the insanity, the pure insanity of the Saturnian dogmas, and the Saturnian dogmas can only see the pure insanity of the Uranian ones. And they both ignore each other's wisdom. And there's wisdom in both sides. There's also insanity on both sides. Okay? But because this team play is getting so strong, it's feeding into the illusion of separateness, and we're more and more divided. Now, each one of these group thinks, or many of them anyways, believes they're right and they have good intentions and they want to save the world, and those are noble intentions. But they're very much at cross purposes with each other. They got to find the common ground. They got to find some compromise through the square. And we got to be careful with those good intentions because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's a classic phrase for a reason. Now, which one of these group thinks is right? All of them. Which one is wrong? All of them. Some is more right than others, of course, but there is truths and falsehoods in all these beliefs. Now let's circle back to the energy that's really in the spotlight now. Okay, Mercury and Gemini. Both these symbols represent the quick-thinking mind. They represent speech, communication. Communication's really central here. But of course, healthy communication is a two-way street. It's got to be coming and going. And right now, primarily, because of the strong belief systems, it's mostly going, and nobody's hearing anything that the other side has to say. Okay, but it is a very mental energy. Gemini is actually it's an air sign. It's on the mental plane. Okay, and Mercury and Gemini do have a lot of overlap in meaning, and that's a big connection there. And the qualities of character, if you will, of the archetypal field that's really activated here, and this applies to people who have strong Gemini and Mercury's in their chart, is curiosity and restlessness. This is a restless time. Okay. Also, it's linked to a lot of mobility and quickness because Mercury goes around the sun once every 88 days. So the sheer speed of things is really ramping up now. But if we take this mental energy that we're working with here in the goal to perceive reality more clearly, one useful tactic here or method to do that is to ask questions out of curiosity. Now, questions throughout history have been punished. Circle back to dark side Sag for a second, that concept of religion. We can think about religion in the more literal context over the last thousands of years. Some questions were seen as blasphemous, let's say, or heretical. So truth or heresy is the name of this video. Okay. Here's a question. Does the Earth revolve around the sun, maybe? Blasphemer. Now, thankfully, we've evolved to the point to where people who are seen as heretics aren't immediately thrown in jail or excommunicated or worse, burned at the stake or something like that. Okay, at least not physically. Now it's more technological as we're in this Aquarian age. Okay. Now, Aquarius itself is known as the sign of the exile or the criminal. That's one of them anyways. Okay. And we are seeing people who are perceived as being heretics or blasphemers, so to speak, even though those aren't really words that are used anymore, okay, receiving public exiling, in the form of whatever, cancel culture, okay, or censorship. We're seeing a lot of that. I expect that to continue, ramping up even more, where the more darker control influences of the planet, seeing as Saturn itself is in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is linked to technology. Gemini is linked to media of all sorts, and that includes social media. That's one method that they're tightening their grip of control, because they're perceiving other people's questions and beliefs as dangerous and threatening. So circling right back to Gemini Mercury, the symbols of communication, we can free associate that to the word speech. Uranus, freedom. Gemini, speech, freedom of speech. Very important right to have. Thank God many of us do, but that's being encroached upon through the square to Saturn, which is about control. Freedom of speech. Saturn, the muzzling. Okay. So we're seeing the censorship going crazy, and it's pretty scary, to be honest. And, the muzzling is should never be done, in my opinion. Okay. But if you think about the guard dog that barks too much, okay, what do? Well, you could muzzle it. The bark's annoying. I get it, but there's also a purpose to that bark sometimes. Sometimes it's just barking because it sees a bird, which is kind of annoying. But what is the purpose of the bark is to alert of danger. Something's near the perimeter of the property that could be dangerous to the people inside the property. So if we muzzle all those dogs that are barking, the danger can come in. Okay. So we got to be very careful of this. Now, this is examples of how we're seeing the energy pop up on a more global scale. And this is evolutionary astrology. And in my counseling work, I'm very much focused on the personal evolution. And the philosophy at the foundation of this approach is how can we use these archetypal fields to better ourselves, to grow and to expand our consciousness, and in so doing, have a positive effect on other people around us, Because the more we're coming from high consciousness thoughts and emotions, as we're more in alignment with our true potential, then we have a positive effect on the environment around us. So what is the meaning of Saturn and Uranus in our personal lives? And that's, it really depends on where it's landing in your own chart, of course. Always circle back to that. But broadly speaking, on a more personal level, Saturn, on a more virtuous expression of Saturn, or at least the evolutionary goal, is to become wiser, more mature, okay? Establish a sense of self-dignity and respect, and to grow up, okay? And the nature of growing up, we can have some growing pains. That's part of Saturn too, okay? But if we're not afraid of Saturn and we're working with it proactively towards doing something exhausting, because Saturn does tend to be exhausting, but we try to accomplish a great work, we cultivate more of that dignity and self-respect. And the nature of the great work is dependent on where it is in your chart, but whenever it's interacting with Uranus, we could take Uranus, the planet of freedom, individuation, becoming a truer version of yourself, the great work of individuating on a more personal level, okay? Because we're all susceptible to psyops, from birth. We're heavily influenced by culture and family, and that's a part of our acquired personality, which is ever changing. It's not a part of our soul personality, the part of us that's been really brewing in the cauldrons of experience over dozens, if not hundreds of lifetimes. So part of us is the real us, the divine personality, if you will. The other one is just cultural glop. The great work of shedding some of that cultural glop and trying to become more in alignment with the part of us that is the real us, instead of who we've been trained and how we've been trained to think, act, feel, and believe. And the more you follow what lights you up, what makes you feel very excited moving forward over the next year, although it might be exhausting, that is the pathway towards shedding some of that cultural glop. All right, so we've discussed the general tensions that we're feeling on a global scale. Okay. How do we work with it? What's the high in Gemini? Well, first, it's starting to recognize and admitting that we don't have all the answers, but it sure is fun to seek them out. That's Gemini energy as we follow this curiosity and talk. And that's what, back to communication. Let's talk. Open-ended conversation. No mind wars here. Laying out your perspective, them laying out your perspective, recognizing that there's truth and falsehoods probably in each of your perspectives, and trying to understand each other. It's the signs of perception and understanding. Okay. Now, in reality, open-ended conversation is probably not going to work so well now, even though it's a good idea. Okay, because it's really not going to put a dent in the tensions that we're feeling, but it is a good strategy. And also trying to become the living embodiment of whatever I believe reality to be. It's not quite that. Okay, these are helpful as you try to embrace Gemini energy into you. Now, luckily for us, since the solar eclipse is happening, right there next to Mercury and Gemini, the synchronistic field is very much activated here, where we will attract to ourselves by chance experiences we need to be having now. To do what? To open our mind more. Okay. So right now we're magnets for the unexpected, for that which we don't understand yet. Shocking, revelations, disclosure, truth bombs. You could use so many different terms. I think they're coming. I think they're coming quickly this month, or next month. I said that in my newsletter. It's going to be this month or next month. Get ready for the truth bombs that will be a bit jolting. They'll be a bit shocking. Okay. But are we ready for it? That's a key question. We're trying to become ready for it. And then we also add to the mix a very prominent aspect this entire month, really, is Neptune in Pisces is in an ongoing square, yet another square, to Mercury and Gemini. Okay? And Mercury basically represents a couple things here. Okay? Represents our mind, okay, but it also, and the cognitive piece and our intelligence, basically, but also our sensory perception of the world. And then Neptune, the god of the sea, which is a metaphor for the sea of consciousness, it represents our spiritual evolution. It represents higher dimensions of reality. Neptune itself is otherworldly. So our Mercury, our sensory perception of this world, Neptune, higher worlds. Our minds meet the one mind. This can lead to a little bit of confusion, hence the square. As the veils between dimensions are a little bit thinner, we can become a little bit disoriented or confused as information filters in, as we receive the truth bombs, How do you work with this energy? Well, what I call mind training. We're trying to train our minds to be ready for a new way of life, a new way of thinking and seeing things. Okay. The best way to do that is through Neptune in Pisces, meditative states, mind training through different levels of consciousness. And what I recommend this month is the various forms of meditation. There's thousands of them out there, okay, that really focus on concentration and observation. I tend to, those of you that like my meditations that I do at the end of these videos, I focus on primarily visualization, okay? But also there's some concentration in there too, because of course we have to concentrate in order to meditate. But good examples of meditations that focus on concentration solely would be the classic one where you just stare at a candle flame for 20 minutes. or just focus on one point of something. It could be even a point within you with your eyes closed. But the candle flame is a classic one. It's pretty hard to do that for 20 minutes because those thoughts come in, they're clamoring for your attention. Jesus called them the spirits that were mute and meaningless coming in, all this chaos of thoughts. With all this Gemini energy activated, our minds are more chaotic in general. So we're trying to quiet that so it doesn't go out of whack, run rampant in our consciousness. And we do that through mind training. Show those spirits that are mute and meaningless who is boss. Who's boss? Your consciousness. So by strengthening your concentration muscle, if you will, your psychic muscle, you can then not allow those thoughts to really control your mind stream. Okay. So concentration, focus on the candle flame for 20 minutes. See if you can do it. Okay, pretty difficult. Observation, there's also many meditations for that as well. One of my favorites is walking out in nature. Or it doesn't have to be nature, just anywhere, go on a walk. I call this walking meditation. And you set the strong intention. It's not so much about exercise, because this is a meditation here after all, of trying to take in everything, observe everything you possibly can, and widen your perception of reality, and try to notice everything. And the spirits mute and meaningless will come in to distract you. You'll start thinking about the conversation you had this morning. And then with the superpower that is your consciousness, whoop, go back to the task at hand. Okay? Constantly observe. See everything you can. I actually recommend doing this meditation multiple days in a row, because if you do it for like 2 weeks in a row, the same walk, you'll notice that the amount you notice at the end of the 2 weeks is infinitely more than what you were able to notice in the first time you did it, because you're strengthening that muscle of observation, that psychic muscle. You got to go to the gym to train these things, otherwise they atrophy. And then after the walk, you go back to the park bench or whatever, and you close your eyes and you try to remember the walk as it happened. Okay, that's also training your ability to visualize. So there's meditations that strengthen all the most important psychic muscle groups. But right now with Neptune square Mercury, those are the two, in my opinion, that are really important to work with. Concentration, observation. The reason for that is, amidst the destructive, chaotic energy of the solar eclipse, new information coming in, inviting us to perceive reality more clearly. But are our minds ready? And we might think, yeah, our minds are ready. Yeah, I'm ready for this, Well, this reminds me of a story. I just saw this on it was on a podcast or YouTube video or something like this, where this gentleman wanted to be visited by a higher dimensional being. Okay. And he really wanted to do this, and every single day in meditation, he set this intention out so strong. I want to meet this higher dimensional being. And however many days or weeks went by, it finally happened, out of the blue, surprised him. And he's walking through his garage, and all of a sudden, this woman manifests in front of him, kind of half of, like the upper half of the body in this white sort of misty cloud, just like manifesting itself or materializing herself in front of him. And he stood back and he was completely shocked, and he was fearful, and he completely froze. And here he was. He thought he was ready to meet this interdimensional being, but when it actually happened, he was shell-shocked. He didn't know what to do. And she basically told him telepathically, honey, you're not ready for this. And then she disappeared. So are we ready? We can be, but it takes hard work, consistency, and effort to get to a place of mind training to be ready for what's to come. So by practicing meditations that focus on concentration and observation, you do that. The more you do that, the more ready you become. And then when the truth hits, your perception of reality becomes much, much clearer, which is the evolutionary goal of all this Gemini energy, as we try to get away from the dark side Sagittarian impulse of certainty, of dogmatic certainty, and become more open to the wonder, the amazement, the awe, the truth of what is really going on here. And those are the core evolutionary intentions, with the goal being to expand our consciousness. And as usual, I'm going to transition into the guided meditation here. I choose to use a meditation that really focuses on peace and connection with other people, because we're so at cross purposes with each other now, feeding into polarity consciousness. This is a meditation that's very much focused on love, connection, and unity consciousness, and to strengthen that intention within us. Enjoy. Sit in a nice, comfortable position with a straight spine, feet flat on the floor. And just begin by focusing on your breath. As you breathe into your belly, feel all the tissues of your body expand as you inhale, and return back to normal shape and size as you exhale. Expand as you inhale. Breathe out. The slower the breath, the better it is. As long as you breathe into the belly, and the exhale is even with the inhale. So if you do 6 seconds per inhale, also do 6 seconds per exhale. And start out by concentrating on your feet, both of your feet. And feel them on the floor, or feel them in your shoes. That grounded feeling there in your feet. And visualize a sky blue color in both feet. And visualize it as water that's sky blue. And as you inhale, see the water raise up your legs, up your body to your head. And as you exhale, see the sky blue water go back down towards your feet. Almost like a small wave hitting against a beach. The color raises from the feet as you inhale, and feel that sky blue water just wash over you back down to your feet as you exhale. And get a beautiful rhythm with this. As this sky blue color relaxes your nervous system. And now move your attention into the center of your abdomen, and just concentrate on the point of the very center of your abdomen. And just focus on that point with laser sharp concentration. If you get distracted, that's okay. Just return to the task at hand and focus on that point. Now that point begins to move up the center line of your body, all the way up to the center of your head. And concentrate on the very center of your head. And now you see that point turn into a brilliant golden dot in the center of your head. And as you inhale, see that dot grow larger and larger and larger until it's the size of a bowling ball in and around your head, a brilliant gold color. And as you inhale, visualize bringing in all the energy from around you into that golden sphere and see it grow brighter and brighter. And as you exhale, it keeps the energy in. And as you inhale, you bring in the energy. The sphere goes brighter and brighter. And as you exhale, it keeps the energy in. And one more time, inhale in, bring the energy in, bright gold color, almost blinding in all directions. And exhale. And visualize this golden orb begin to dissolve back into the point in the center of your head. Now move your concentration down from your head into the center of your chest. And see that dot in the center of your chest turn into a pinkish color, a pink dot. And as you inhale, see it expand to the size of a bowling ball, a beautiful rosy white sphere. And as you breathe in, it becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. And as you exhale, it keeps all the energy in. Inhale the brightness and the energy, this glowing pink orb, and exhale, keep the energy in. And one more time, breathe in the energy and the brightness until it's almost blinding, and then exhale, keep the energy in. And the pink orb begins to dissolve back into the dot in the center of your chest. Just a point of awareness. And you begin to feel your consciousness becoming lighter, no longer hindered by heavy thoughts and emotions. Begin to expand your consciousness in every direction from where you're sitting. And don't just visualize it, feel it. Feel the expansiveness going out in every direction as it passes through the building above the trees. It's almost like a growing bubble. And it keeps growing and growing until you can see it. You see the town beneath you. A lovely rose light pours out from your heart, blanketing first over your neighbor's home, and then the whole neighborhood, and finally the entire town. Feel the joy. And you continue to expand to the point where you can see the entire nation. Perhaps there's some trouble in it somewhere. And your heart continues to pour out love for all. And the whole country is now covered in this pink light. Next, spread your awareness to encompass first the cloud cover, and then the atmosphere. You see yourself continuing to expand like that growing bubble. And you can see the whole planet underneath you. A gorgeous paradise of deep blue oceans, vast mountain ranges, and lush plains. And you're aware there is fighting in various parts of the world. Great unhappiness, and you want to help. And from where you are, there's no borders, no lines separating people. It's just one world. All trouble is born out of ignorance and misunderstanding. We want to love one another and live in peace. Now your heart is a river of rose light, which floods the entire globe with peace and love. And visualize seeing millions of smiling faces bathed in this rose light. See men laying down their guns and embracing each other in common brotherhood. See people giving food and clothes to others in need. And continue to pour out this pink energy from your heart more and more and more. Now you see the planet move towards you and nestle in your heart. Moments ago, you were on the planet, and now the planet is in you. Keep the planet in your heart. Wish peace and harmony to prevail the world over. Now return your awareness back to your body and feel that you're in your entire body. And visualize your body glowing in a white color, shining brightly in all directions. As you inhale, it gets brighter and brighter, and this white color harmonizes with every cell of your body. Begin to bring your awareness back to the room and into your fingers and toes. Begin to stretch them a little bit, wiggle them, stretch your body, and whenever you're ready, open your eyes.